Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's daf is Kesubos Pei. We are holding on Ayin Testament Beis at the bottom. Let's just go back to that Mishnah again, 6 lines from the bottom, and take it from there. So we have Nichsei Miluk. These are properties, assets, which a wife brings into the marriage. Husband has the rights to the peiros, produce, profits coming from that property, from that asset. Says the Mishnah, what if the husband invests in maintaining and improving on that asset and doesn't really reap much benefit? By the time divorce comes around, what happens? His fellow spent a lot on his wife's properties. He invested to improve that lot. He invested much. And only took in very little profit. Or kima, he invested very little. And reaped tons. We don't match up the numbers. Whatever you've invested is in there. Whatever you've taken out of it, that's your luck. We don't match it up. It doesn't have to equalize in numbers. But suppose he invested, but didn't take anything from that property by the time divorce came around. In this case, there's a special takana. You can get back your expenses. He should just make a shvua, should swear how much he spent on it, and he can get back that money. V'kama kima. So we say that if you got even a bit from that property, he's not entitled to reclaim those expenses. What is considered kimah? What is the minimum required for that? Amar Asi. So Rabbi Asi tells us, afilu groi geres achas, even if he had just one dried fig. That's it. He got something, you're done. V'hu, provided, she'achla derech kavod. He had it in an honorable way. For a sit-down, as a sit-down meal, as opposed to just a snack on the go, on the road, on the street. Derech kavod. So you really got a proper benefit from this property. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amri Beirav, in the Beis Medrash of Rav, they said, Afilu shigra de tamri. Not only a properly dried date, even some a dried fig, but even a paste of dates. So even if it's not intact, it's just a paste of crushed dates. He got that. He got something. That's enough. Boy Rav Beve. What about chuvtza de tamri mai? According to one pshat and Rashi, so we have the residue when they make that beer using dates. So whatever left over, the psoilus, the remnants left behind, that's called chuvtza of tamri, of dates. Mai. Suppose he ate that. Is that sufficient to count as income? Take it. We let it stand. So this is all if he had a derech kavod, even a gregeres, etc. What if he did not have a derech kavod? Lo yachal derech kavod. Mai. What happens there? So the Gemara will tell us, in that case, quantity has to make up for quality. He did not have a derech kavod, but if he had enough, something significant, that is enough. So how much is that? Mai amar ula pligiba trei amurai b'marav. In Eretz Yisrael, there was machlekes between two amurais as follows. Chad amar b'ki isar. One maintains, as long as he had a isar coin's worth of produce, that is considered sufficient income to trigger this halacha. V'chad amar b'ki dinar, a dinar's worth. Here comes the chiddush. Amri dayona de pumbedisa. So there was an amir for a Papa bar Shmuel, Rashi brings, he was called Dayane de Pumpredisa. He got that title. So he said as follows: Avad Rab Yehuda Uvda Bechavilez Moiris. Rab Yehuda the Amoira, he once implemented the following halacha. The aforementioned halacha, Bechavilez Moiris, even though the husband only had taken some vine branches, animal feed, that suffices as income, in which case he cannot reclaim his expenses. Rabbi Yehuda litamei, because he's following his own shita elsewhere, this type of income is considered sufficient. To Amar Rabbi Yehuda, achla, arla, shvius v'kelayim, hareze chazaka. There's a halacha called chazaka of shalosh shanim. You purchase a field, you can't produce that purchase document because it's already 3 years since the purchase date, you have a chazaka. You don't have to prove your ownership going further. Provided you ate, you used the field, you reaped the crops off that field. Rabbi Yehuda tells us, even though he only had some arla, some shvius, some kilayim, and Rashi explains, by arla, by kilayim, certainly you could only have the vines to feed your animal. So in that case, is that considered having used the field, having benefited from the field? Yes, harei zeh chazaka. And that is consistent with Rabbi Yehuda Bayos. A husband who takes that as income, that is considered having gotten something off her property, in which case he cannot reclaim his expenses. Amar Rav Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, Hamoitzi Yitzois, Al Nichsei Ishtoi Ketana. He's married to a Ketana who is married to him by her brother or her mother, not her father. Her father would be Min HaTorah, but it was by way of another family member. So her marriage to him is only midrabanan. So a fellow who's married to a Ketana, he's concerned that she might turn around and just walk off, doing the miyun, rejection process. So he's going to quickly try to get whatever he could from her properties, rather than maintaining them properly and upkeeping them properly, because he's concerned that his investment might just go down the drain. So in this case, we made a takana. Kimoitzi al nichsei achar dami. We treat it as though he's investing in a stranger's property. And as we know, based on the Gemaras elsewhere, what happens in that case? He can get back pretty much what he invested. My time, and why do we make this exception for the Iktana? Of the Rabbanon Takanta. The Rabbanon saw fit to apply a special takana in this case, so that the husband is not tempted to just neglect and overuse and abuse that field, lest she turn around and just walk away with it. Therefore they said, look, we'll take into account what you invested and allow you to reclaim your expenses as long as they're reasonable. Says the Gemara, there was a woman, the naflu la arba me'azuzah bechuzoi. She had 400 zuz coming to her, an inheritance or whatever, in the town of Bechuzoi, or a town of Chuzoi. Ozil Gavra. So her husband went along to go collect this debt. But he had some very large travel expenses. Apikshis meya. He had to spend 600 coins, 600 zuz, just to get there and back. I see arba meya, in order to retrieve the 400. Not only that, on his way back, he had extra expenses as well. As he's coming back, he needed to take one of the zuzim for his some sort of expense. So he was short one zuz, and he took it out of that fund. So technically, he already got something from that fund. He invested much, but he got something. Is that considered to having gotten something? In which case, he cannot reclaim his expenses? Also, like Rav Ami. So then they divorced, and then he came to Rav Ami wanting his expenses back. Omar le Rav Ami tells him, it's over. Done deal. Masha hoitzi hoitzi, umasha achal achal. It's a Mishnah. We don't reckon expenses versus income. Sure, you spent tons of money, but you got something. Remember, you took that one coin, that one zuz, for yourself. Omar le Rabbanan, the Rav Ami, the Rabbanan responded, really? Hani, when do we say that this is true? When you take some of the peiros, some produce, some profit. Firstly, this fellow, he had no profit. He took that coin which was part of the actual principal. He has to repay that. That's not income. Number two, it wasn't for his own personal benefit. It was for the travel expenses to retrieve this money. That's not called benefiting. Im Kain, or as the Bach says, Amar Lahu. Rab Ami, upon hearing this, responded in kind. Correct. Im Kain, if that's the case. Havali hoitzi v'loy achal. This fits with the other halacha. He spent but got nothing from it. Yishava kama hoitze v'yitol, all he has to do is make a shvua. I spent such and such, and he gets it back. On the topic of Yishama kama hoitze v'yitol, says Rav Asi, Amar Rav Asi, v'hu, when does this apply? Sheyesh shavach keneged hoitzah. There's enough improvement in the property corresponding to the expenses. So the numbers match. He spent 100, he got back the property was enhanced by that much as well. So it's sort of a cryptic statement. We're going to try to figure out Rav Asi's meaning. The Mai Hilchasa pertaining to what idea was Rav Asi saying this point of the shavach, the improvement, should match the expenses. Mai Hilchasa. Was it halacha to benefit the husband, to benefit the wife? What was he trying to say? Amar Abaye, Shema Yeshev Ach Yoser Al Hitzah. If it turns out that the property rose so much in value, greater than the investment, than the input by the husband, so you invested 1,000 and it's worth 2,000 more. Noitel as Hitzah B'lo Shvua. So in this case, we don't obligate a shvua. You don't need to swear. Look, wow, you invested and look what you did to her property. You can get your money back without swearing. Amalei Rabba says Rabba, so everybody will just do that. Imkain asila rumi. So everybody will just pretend that they invested less than the increase in value. I'll just take it without a shvua, without need to verify. Or to substantiate that claim, who's to say that it's even an honest claim? Ella ma Rava says, Rava, that's not what Rav Asi meant. I'll tell you what he meant. When he says that the shvach, the improvement, the enhancement, must match the expenses, he means like this. When the Mishnah says you can make a shvua and get back your expenses, provided that those expenses don't exceed the actual increase in value that the property experienced. So we give you what you spent, provided it's a reasonable amount. It's up to the shavach that we see in the karka. But of course, you're going to get it back only with a shvua. So Rav Asi was making it difficult, more difficult on the husband. You can't spend to the sky and expect it back. You can only get back up to the increase in value. Iboilu, here comes an interesting question. So she brings in a field, the husband decides to hire some workers, an aris, a sharecropper, or in plural, arisin, sharecroppers. So Baal shahirid arisin tachtav ma'u. So his husband, instead of personally tending to that field, he hires some arisin under him to do the work. So now they work the whole season. He decided to divorce. They haven't yet gotten paid for their work. They come to the husband, pay us. He goes to the wife, his former wife. You pay them. After all, they were working on your field. Mahu, what is the halacha? What does this depend on? Depends on perspective. How do we look at this? Adata de Baal Nachis. These workers arrived upon the husband's instructions. They're his workers. He is their employer. He is responsible for them. Yustalikli Baal, the second the husband leaves the scene, Yustalikulu, they're gone as well. It's between them and the husband. She doesn't know them anything. And Taisus explains that the husband will be putter as well, because you've taken a risk when you've undertaken this job. You knew that we had this arrangement with the Nichse Melugan. The second I'm gone, you're gone. That's one way. Or perhaps you can say Adata de Aranachas. They came in to work the land. Vara, and a typical tract of land, ki kaima. La'ari si kaima. A tract of land is meant to be tended to by the arisim. Who else is going to work on it? You don't just leave it fallow. So the husband says to his former wife, look, if not me looking after it, you would have looked after it. If not for these workers, it would have been other workers. I didn't cause you any loss. Be reasonable and pay them their salary. So which way is it? Is it personal between him and the workers? Or is it land and property and field related, in which case they did their job, they earned their pay? Maskef l'Rava bar Chanan. I have a kasha on this whole question. Why are you even questioning their salary? Maishna, why would this be different? A fellow decides to approach his friend's field. He sees it's being neglected, and he plants it without permission from its owner. He works it, he improves it. What is the halacha? He gets back that expenditure. Shamanly, we appraise the enhancement in the field. And he gets, the lesser amount, whether it's the increase in value that he brought about or the expenses that he actually laid out. Bottom line, you get back for your work. Likewise, the Aris working on this Isha's field, they should get their salary. At least something. Says the Gemara, big difference. Hassam, in the case of a stranger's field, Leka inish the tarach. You see, there's nobody taking care of it. So you're going to offer your services, you deserve your money back. Hacha, however, in a nichse melug situation, Ika ba'al the tarach, there's her husband that should be looking after it. And therefore she says, look, if you wouldn't have gone and done that work, he would have worked. So you can't charge me for that job. My Havi Allah, what's the conclusion on this question? Amar Rav Huna, Breder Rav Yeshua, Chazinan. We will evaluate. Let's take a close look at what type of person we're speaking about. Ibal Orisu, if this husband is an expert in agriculture, he's a farmer. Istalakle Baal, Istalkalahu. So he should have done the job himself. He decided to hire some workers. That's unfair. So it's between him and them. As soon as he's gone, they're gone. She has no reason to pay them, because she says, you should have done the work yourself. That's just the way it works. Nichse melug, it's ours to share, to take care of. You want the payers, you should be doing the work. You decide to hire workers, that's your issue, not mine. But iba'al lav arisu, or if the husband is not proficient in this profession, he would have hired workers in any case. I should say she would have hired workers in any case. Ara la orisi kaima. So the land is intended for an aris to work on it, in which case she's obligated to pay their expenses. Asks the Gemara, Iboilu, here comes another question. Baal shemochar karka leperis mahu. So this husband, who is administering his wife's fields and is entitled to the peris, can he sell that field to a customer who will have peris rights? The actual principal, not that belongs to his wife. But I'm selling the produce of this field. I'm selling the land to you for peris rights. Mahu, does that work? Mriyam Brinan, shall we say? Sure, it works. My dekani, akni. He gave away what he had himself. My dekani, akni. Oidilmu, or perhaps it doesn't work. Because after all, it's not a real ownership. It's a takanas chachamim. We give him an entitlement. He has a schus to access the peris. It's not transferable. Why did Rabban give a husband peris? Mishum revach beisa, says Rashi on the top line. Mishum revach beisa, shiachnas haperis lebeisa. This way he brings in some income. So it's plentiful at home, and it's nice, it's generous, it's happy. He'll be nice to her. So getting peris is meant to benefit both of them. It's meant to increase the income flow. It's meant to improve on their domestic situation. Aval Zvuni, says the Gemara Loibus, to say you can just sell it off and take the money and invest it offshore. That's not what it was meant to be. So, does it work or not? We have a machlekes. Yehuda Mar Bar Meremar, in the name of Rabbi Mishmei the Rabbi Amar, he says, Masha Asa Asoy, sure, he shouldn't be selling it. That's not what it was meant for, but if he sells it, it's sold. However, Rav Papa Amar, in the name of Rava, Mishmei the Rava, Lo Yasa V'Lei it doesn't work. In fact, Amar Rav Papa, I want you to know that my opponent, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Meremar, who is quoting Rava as such, that it works, you should know it wasn't really a direct quote from Rava. It was his inference from a story which I want to disprove. Hadi Yehuda Mar Bar Meremar, this position presented by Yehuda Mar Bar Meremar in the name of Rava, that it works, Lav Beferish Itmar, it wasn't explicitly stated. Ela Miklala Itmar was just a diuk, an inference from a story as follows, which I want to reframe for you. Listen to this. Dahi Itasa. There was a story about an Isha, a wife. The Ayla Leila Gavra Tartiam Hasa. She brings in two shivchais, two maidservants, into the family. They are Nichse Milug. What does this husband do? Azal Gavra. Her husband goes along. Nosiv Itasa Achriti. He marries a second woman. He brings her into the family, and she needs her own servant. So what does he do? Well, the first woman had two, right? He takes one of those and gives it to the new wife. Ayla Chada Minayu. So he takes one of these shivchais and designates it for this new woman. Ayla, he gave her a Chada Minayu, one of them. So the woman, the first one, was all agitated. She comes to Rabbi Tzavcha and she's yelling and she's screaming and complaining. Look what he did to my shivcha. Rabbi didn't respond. Now, there were two ways to explain his non-response. And this was this sort of the source and the cause, I should say, for Yehuda Mamaremar coming to his conclusion that according to Rava, you can actually transfer the Nichse Miluk to others. You see, Mandachaza, the observer, figured like this. Savar Mashum de Savar Masha Asa Asa. He figured that Rava holds that transferring Nichse Miluk is considered a legally binding transaction. And therefore, in this case, when he takes Rachel's shivcha and gives it to Leah, it works. And therefore he concluded that according to Rava, this type of thing works. V'lohi, says Rav Papa, you should know it's incorrect. Because, let's take a step back. After all, why would it not work? Why cannot a husband give over the Nichse Miluk and sell it? Mishum Ravach Beis, as we explained before, because we want there to be an abundance in the home. Well, guess what? Although that applies generally, it would not apply in this case of the shivchais, because he didn't send her out of town, he kept her in the house. In this case, sure, she's serving the other wife, but after all, she's participating and contributing to the domestic needs and services at home. So the bottom line is, everybody's benefiting from it. So in this case, it works, although typically, you can't just sell off your wife's Nichse Miluk. In fact, the Gemara concludes, Baal Shemachar Karka Leperos Loyasa Leklum. A husband chooses to sell off his wife's field and give the customer a schus to peros, it doesn't work. Why? So we had one reason, Revach Besa, but now we're actually going to add another reason. My time, Abaye Amar Chayshinan will concern Shema Tachsev. Oh, if he goes and sells it to a customer, that fellow is going to empty this field for all it's worth. He's going to abuse it. He's going to neglect it. He's going to deplete that asset. You know why? Because he's concerned that sooner or later, perhaps something will happen with that husband and wife and she'll take back this property. He won't have anything from it. So he won't care to invest and to maintain this property. As opposed to the husband, he'll take good care of the property while it's under his care, because he always has that chance that he might actually get that property upon his wife's passing. But selling, that's not acceptable. That's Abaye's reason. And Rava Amar, what we just mentioned before, Mishum Ravach Beisa, we wanted to stay in-house so that they both benefit and it's a happy household. My binayu, let me have some differences between the two pshatim. Is the concern Ravach Beisa or Tachsev? Any differences? 3 differences. One difference is Ara, a piece of land, the Mikar Velamasa, which is close to town. Here there's no concern of depletion because the wife will take care to keep an eye on that property and make sure it's well maintained. Inami. Another difference would be Baal Arisu. Let's say the husband himself is the sharecropper, meaning he sells it to Shimon, but then maintains his position as an aris on the field. So Reuven, the husband, is selling the field to Shimon for Peres rights, but Reuven himself continues working on that field, and of course he'll look after it and keep it in good shape. So the concern of Tachsa doesn't apply. Baal Arisu. Inami, a third situation would be Zuzi. Suppose she inherited a bunch of money. V'ka'avad b'hu iska. Sorry. Zuzi means he takes the money from the buyer. V'ka'avad b'hu iska. And he's using it for business. So there's a constant inflow of funds, constant income, which is actually benefiting the home. So the increase of income brings about satisfaction, and this is fully in keeping with the intent behind the takana of nichse melug. Okay, so let's just summarize the sugi up until this point. We spoke about a husband investing in his wife's nichse melug. He invests much, gets little, invests little, gets much, doesn't matter. But if he invests and gets nothing back, at the end of the day, he's entitled to get it back through a shvur. What is considered the minimum, which would suffice to cancel his rights to reclaim the expenses. An achila derech kavod, even a gergeres, shaloi b'derech kavod, an isa worth, a dina worth. Even machal behema is considered achila. When she's a yisayim, the chachamim consider that like a stranger, meaning we don't want the husband to be harried and frenzied and deplete the property, and therefore he's entitled to get back his expenses in accordance with a formula applicable to any person's field. Now, he got nothing back. He makes a shvur to reclaim his expenses, provided those expenses do not exceed the increase in value observed in the field. The husband hired some workers. Now, husband and wife divorced, they would like their salary. The conclusion was, if the husband is meant to be doing the work himself, they're not entitled to any salary. But otherwise, they can get their money's worth. What about mechira leperos? Can the husband actually sell this karka to a customer for peros rights? We had a machlokes, yes or no. Why not? And that's the maskonas al-gemara, that's the halacha. Either because the customer might deplete the field, or we want revach beisa going on, 3 nafkaminas. 3 situations where one reason would apply and not the other. Continues the Mishnah. Shemeres yavim shenaflo nechas. So although in the Mishnah back in the beginning of the parak we spoke about an engaged wife, a married wife, who shouldn't be selling off the properties which she receives at that point. They are nichse melug. They are meant to be accessible to the husband, who's meant to take the profits off those fields. So she shouldn't be selling. But a shemeres yavam can do what she wants. Her husband passed away, no children. She's slated for yibum with, the brother of Shimon. Right now, she receives an inheritance. Shemeres yavam shenaflu lo nechasim. All agree she can just sell them off. It's like a pre-engagement. She's not yet connected to the yavam. She can do what she wants. Moedim beishama ubesil, both agree. Shema icheres v'no yisenes v'kaim. She sells, she gives herself away, and it works. Here comes another question. Mesa, suppose she passed away in the interim, before the yivam. What shall we do with all her assets? You see, on the one hand, she has a family, she has a father, who are her legal heirs. She has no children because she's a yivama, but she has the yarshe aviyah. On the other hand, her husband, former husband, has some brothers, has his family. So what do we do with her assets? Mesa, ma yasu b'ksuvas. What shall we do with the dowry which she took into the marriage with Reuven? Who does that belong to? On the one hand, technically it belongs to her and her family. On the other hand, the husband accepts responsibility to look after those items. He has achrayis. It's sort of somewhat his as well. That's one question. What about the assets which come and go with her? Meaning the nichse melug. Who does that go to upon her death? Death of a yivama before a yivam. We have a machlokes. Regarding the nichse melug, they split it. Yechalku, Yershe Habal, Im Yershe Ha'av, both families should split them equally. When it comes to the dowry items, Rashi calls them tzoin barzel, those items stay within the chazaka, the ones that are already holding on to them. Rashi brings 2 pshatim. whether it means the husband's family or her family, based on the Gemara and Bava Basra. Ukisuba, the next item on the list is the ksuba, the 100, 200, the tesefes ksuba, the ksuba payout, which a wife typically gets upon her husband's death. In this case, her husband passed away. She is meant to get that collection, but she passed away as well. Who gets that money? Uksuba b'cheskas yorshei habal. This stays in the husband's family because it was in their hands until now. They just hold on to that. Nechasim and nechnasim. What about the nichsei melug? B'cheskas yorshei av. It goes to her family because technically she really owns it. Continues the Mishnah. Hiniach achiv mois. So now Reuven passed away, no children. The halacha is, upon her yivum with Shimon, she's entitled to ksuba, but the ksuba is collected from the departed brother's assets. That's the halacha. She takes it from Reuven's assets. So if he leaves behind properties, those are designated, they are meshubad for her ksuba. What about monies? What about metaltalin, fruit, mobile items? According to Rabbi Meir, those too are meshubad, are earmarked for her ksuba, whereas according to Chachamim, only karka, which is something a person relies on, right? So real estate is something which you typically place your claims on. That's meshubad to the ksuba, but otherwise not. Peiros or Mois, not. So hiniach achiv Mois. So his brother, meaning Reuven, the brother of the Yavam Shimon. So Reuven passed away, leaving behind funds. Yilokech ben karka, v'oichel peres. Those funds, according to Rabbi Meir, are mershuba to her ksuba. So they're sort of meant for her. He can't just, consume that. He has to put it aside as sort of a trust fund, so that eventually she can collect the ksuba from that, if the need arises. So in the meantime, what does he do with it? He buys real estate. That real estate is sort of earmarked for her ksuba, so he can't really touch that, but he can have the peiros. It's like nichsei melug. Likewise, peiros atlushim min karka. Reuven passed away, leaving behind picked fruit. That's like money. Yilokech ben karka, v'oichel peiros. Again, you do the same thing. You buy karka, and the Yavam Shimon will eat the peiros. Hamechubarin bakarka. Suppose there's some unpicked fruit. Reuven passed away, leaving behind a field with half-grown fruit, which eventually will fully ripen and be picked. So now this banana, which is now at its half point, that first half belongs to whom? It's meshubah to her. It's designated for her ksuba. Why? Because that's something that Reuven left behind. So eventually it's going to ripen and be picked. How do we know how much of it is meshubah to the ksuba? We evaluate. Amar Rabbi Meir. We take a look at the field, which is filled with unripe, unpicked fruit, and we make an evaluation. We see how much the field is worth now. With shaman isa, right, the field. Kama hi yafa. There's a bach changing it. Kama hi yafa beperis. How much is the field worth now because of the, partially grown fruit? It's worth $2,000, right? V'kama hen yafan beloy peris. And how much is it going to go down when it's depleted of its fruit? After the fruit is picked, it goes down to 1,000. So apparently, these half-picked fruit, half-grown fruit, are worth $1,000. And that differentiation, that extra 1,000. So later on, when the bananas fully ripen and are picked, and are worth way more than just $1,000 for the unpicked fruit, unfinished fruit. But that $1,000 is really belonging to her, right? Remember, that field left behind featured these unpicked fruit, which in themselves had a value. We just determined their value at $1,000. So that extra, that $1,000, that differentiation, yilokech ben karka, Eventually, when he picks the bananas, he'll have to set aside $1,000, which is her part of the fruit, the part that was there upon her husband's passing, the part that's meant for her ksuba. You buy karka with it, you put it aside for the ksuba, and the husband can have the peiros from that property as well. Again, it's like nichsei maluk. The Chachamim disagree with this idea of metaltalin being meshubah to the ksuba unless she's actually in possession of those items. That's the halach of the Chachamim. A person relies on karka, not on metaltalin, unless she's actually holding on to the metaltalin. The Chachamim oimrim peiros hamechubarim b'karka shaloi, and the Gemara will change this to shalom. Fruit that are unpicked, that are still mechubah to the karka, they're considered part of the karka, fine. So it's meant for the ksuba. But atlushim and karka, fruit that are off the ground, metaltalin, kol akoidem, zacha behen. Whoever gets to them first, gets to them. Kol adam hu, zacha. He gets to them first, he gets it. He doesn't have to earmark it for her ksuba. Kodma hi, she gets it first, and she is zeiche. And therefore you lakach ben karka, you take any purchased karka with it, v'hu eichel peres, from which the husband can have the peres. Continues the Mishnah on a slightly different topic. So now we have the Yivama awaiting Yibam, and here we go. There was Yivam done. Kansa, he takes her in as a wife. Harihi ki ishta l'chol davar. She's considered his wife pertaining to all the halachas of husband and wife. Ubilvad, with one exception. Shetei ksubasa al nichsei bala harishan. The ksuba payment is taken from where? From her first husband's assets. So that's the halacha, that Shimon the Yavam is not independently obligated to the ksuba payment of the Yivama. Actually, he takes from Reuben's properties. But he plays backup. Lo yomer le, he can't tell her, look, harik subaseich monachas ala shulchan. Here's the the ksuba payment right here. You want to take it, you don't want to leave it for later. He can't do that. Everything that he owns is there to secure and ensure the ksuba payment. Elakol nechasav, all his assets, all his properties, achroin the ksuvasa, are there to ensure the ksuba payment. So although technically she should be getting the ksuba from Reuben's properties, but Shimon the Yavam has to play backup. If there's none available from Reuben, he has to go ahead and pay instead. Now let's shift to a regular marriage. We discussed Yivam, now a regular marriage. V'chein, likewise, lo yomer adam l'ishta, a person should not turn to his wife and say, Harik suvaseich, monachas ala shulchan. I committed to the ksuba payment. Here's 200 zuz, right here, if you ever want to take it. No, you can't do that. Ela kol nechasav, achroin l'ksuvasa. Rather, everything that he owns is mishubad, is there to guarantee the ksuba payment. Continues the Mishnah. Now we're back to the Yivama. Girsha. So he took her in as a wife and then divorced her. Ein la elo ksuba. She doesn't get more than the ksuba. Meaning until he divorced. So everything that he owned was connected to the ksuba. He can't just, sell it off, right? But once he divorces her, he pays her the ksuba, and now everything is his. He's free to sell and do what he wants. Hechazira, let's say the Yavam takes back the Yavama again. He remarries her. Harei kechol hanoshim. So now we treat her like any other wife. Ve'en la ksuba v'vat, which means that she only gets ksuba. Not only that, she's not even entitled to a new ksuba. Let's say he divorced her once, was supposed to pay the ksuba, and took her back. He couldn't afford the ksuba, took her back. He won't have to pay twice upon the second divorce. If he already paid out the first ksuba, fine. Paid. So next time around he pays again. But if he never paid her for the first time, once he takes her back, it's understood, it's presumed, back to square one. So he doesn't have to pay her anything unless he decides to divorce her again. The Gemara will ask, why does the Mishnah, peg this onto the Yivama? This is something which pertains to every Isha and every marriage. The Gemara will discuss this. Here comes an interesting question. A shemeres yavam, Isha who's awaiting yibum, she passes away. Mi koiver, who is meant to look after her burial? And the question is because in the Mishnah it's pretty apparent that she has two heirs, she has two Yerushim. She has her family and his family. So who's meant to look after her? Yerushi habal kavrila, is it her husband's family? The koyarsi ksuba, because they get the ksuba. They're Yerush ksuba, like we said in the Mishnah. And Rashi says, well, the entire chiyuv of kvura between husband and his wife, is because he gets her ksuba. In this case, they get her ksuba, they should bury her. Or perhaps, Yerush av kavrila. Her family should do it. Because they take her nichsem malug. So they are the Yerushim. So, how do we go about this? It says the Gemara, Amar of Amram Tashma, I'll bring you a right from our Bryce. The son, Yeshemeres Yavam Shemesa, Yerushah, her Yerushim, who are Yerushei Kesubasa, so that's the husband's family, they are Chayav Mikvarasa, they will do the Kvura. We'll continue on this topic, Be'ezus Hashem, tomorrow. Okay, so let's briefly recap today's daf. We discussed the husband who spends to improve his wife's assets. So, if he got something in return, he will not reclaim his expenses, but otherwise he can reclaim those expenses, provided he makes a shvua. Even if he got just a little bit, even ma'achal behema constitutes. We had a shaila about this fellow who was on a trip and spent a lot of money on his wife's, to get his wife's Yerusha back. And the Gemara says, being that he didn't really earn anything personally from that trip, he just makes a shvua and gets back the money. What if he hired workers, the arisim, to tend to his wife's property? Well, if he's not meant to work, he's not meant to do the farming himself, then it's a legitimate expense, and he can pay them for their labors even after he divorced his wife. So she's responsible for their salary. What about actually selling his wife's property leperes, so that the customer can have peres? The halacha is you don't do that. We have two reasons. What about a shemeres yavam? She can sell off all her properties prior to yivam. She's not yet connected to the yavam. All of the Ruvain's properties are meshuba to the ksuba, right? Whether they're a karka. And what about peres? Well, that's a machlekes. Reb Meir says even peres of the former husband are meshuba to the ksuba, whereas Rabbanan say only if she actually has possession of those things. Otherwise, they're not really connected to the ksuba. We had several more details, and we ended with the shaila regarding the kvura of the Yivama, which we will continue with Hashem tomorrow. Haslach Rabatu and B'sureis Teves.